What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video. Today, we are continuing our PostgreSQL series, and in this lesson, we're going to be looking at subqueries. Now, subqueries are pretty unique, and I think a lot of people struggle with them just because of the syntax itself, and it's kind of hard to look at it and think about it and know what to do. But I'm going to try to break it down really simply so that by the end of this video, you know subqueries really well. And we're not just going to look at subqueries in the where clause, because that's where I would say most people think about it. We're going to look at it in the from, in the select, and in different scenarios. Now, before we begin, I just want to show this to you. And I think this is kind of the easiest way to look at a subquery. And this is kind of the common terminology for a subquery. It's an outer query and an inner query. The outer query looks like this. Select your columns from your table, and then you have your where, and then you have a subquery or an inner query. And the inner query is just another full query. Select this from this, where this. So we have a little query, or the inner query, inside of a larger query, or the outer query. That's all a subquery is. But it can be confusing to know when and where to use it. So we're going to walk through some scenarios and where to put these subqueries in different parts of your SQL query. Let's start with a really common example, and it's looking at and comparing against averages. Now, if I look at estimated net worth, I might be over here and I might think, I wonder who has more money than the average person. This might be a question you get in like an interview, or your client comes up to you and say, I want to know which of our clients are spending more money than the average person. So that's kind of the example that we're looking at. We want to know whose estimated net worth is greater than average. Let's go in here and we're going to say where, then we're going to do estimated, if I can spell this right, net worth. And then we're going to say is greater than, and this is where we want to just say average estimated net worth, right? We want to say where the estimated net worth is greater than the average estimated net worth. But if we run this, it's not going to work. You can't use aggregate functions in the where clause. But we can kind of get around this. This is where subqueries are so useful. It's kind of like a cheat code. It's like, I'm not actually using the average estimated net worth. I'm using a value pulled from this estimated net worth. And so let's see how we can write this. I'm going to come down here. I'm just going to format it like this so you can see it as like a completely separate thing. But this isn't the exact format I would use. We're going to say select the average estimated net worth. And then I'm going to do enter. And I'm going to say from character info. So this is like an absolute cheat code because I just want to get the average net worth up here, but it won't let me because you can't use aggregations. So what this is doing is this is running this query. It's evaluating it to a number, and then it's just putting the number here. So in this section, now that's where the number is going to be. So now if I run this, and that's my bad, we actually need to put the parentheses right here. Now we can run it. And these are the people who have an above average estimated net worth. And if we just run this by itself, let's look at what the average is, because this is a full query, a full statement. It's going to take 2,008,666. So 2 million, that's a lot. And then it gets placed right here. So we just say where estimated net worth is greater than that 2,008,000. And these are the people who have that estimated net worth higher than that average. Now, this isn't typically how I would actually write it. I might do something like this, where it looks like this. It's all on one line, so someone can easily read it. Or I might do it like this, where, again, it's just easily readable. And then the next line, I'd go back here and say, whoops. And then I would say something like order by or something like that. And I try to make this very evident that this is a subquery, because if someone else looks at this query or I pass this off to a team member, I want them to be able to really easily see this is a subquery that we're using in this query. Now, along this same line of selecting this average estimated net worth, let's come down here. I'm going to take this. And right now we're using it in the where statement or the where clause, but we don't have to use it just in the where clause. For example, what if I want to do character underscore name? We'll take the estimated net worth. I'm not going to write that out. I'll mess it up. The estimated net worth. And we also want the average estimated net worth. Just like we were looking at before, we want it, I need this as an underscore. We want it all in one query, right? We're going to run this. It's not going to work. We'd have to group by, and then we would have to have these columns as our group by. We don't want that. We just want to compare their estimated net worth compared to the estimated net worth. We can do the exact same thing that we did up here. In fact, let's just copy this because I want to do that. I want to save our time. So if I bring this in here and I run it like this, now I'll bring it over here. Now this is a new column with just this average value. So we're just placing it as a number here, and I'll say as average worth, and I'm butchering the writing of this. So now this is its own new column. Let's go ahead and run this. Now we have our character name, our estimated net worth, and then it's just a default value for this entire column. This is the average net worth. So we can kind of compare to each person. So this again is a very common use case. You don't just have to use it in the where, you can also use it in the select, especially if you're using things like aggregations. It's great to pull that in. You don't have to just keep it as this. We could also add filters here, right? We just want to look at comparisons. So we're going to say where the species is equal to human. So we're going to say average human underscore net worth. And let's run this. And now this is the average net worth just for people who are humans. So we can compare, oh, Yoda, he's not a human, or R2-D2, he's not a human, but we can compare his estimated net worth or its estimated net worth compared to a human's average net worth. And so this subquery can be its own entire query. You can do tons of stuff in here. As long as it pulls back just one value, that's perfect. It doesn't have to be a numeric value, by the way. It could also be a text value, but you can't have multiple values in here. For example, in a normal query, we would be able to do the sum of the estimated net worth, right? If we just look at this like this, we're just going to run the subquery. We can run that and get two values, but we cannot run it in the overall query because now we have two values that are being placed in the select, and it doesn't know which one to actually use. It even says here, subquery must return only one column. And so that just won't work. So we'll get rid of that sum, and now it'll work again. Now another common use, and let's bring this down. Another common use is actually using it in the from statement. This one I think is maybe the most trickiest one for most people because usually you just pull from a table. And that's it. That's all you do. You're pulling from this table that is just sitting here as a table. And it's, it's pretty straightforward. But when you try to start using the from, it gets a little bit confusing. All you're doing is you're creating another table with a query. So instead of character info, I can specify what data is going to be in this from in the table that we're pulling, and then I can query off of it. It's pretty sweet. Let's just look at a quick example. So I'm just going to look at our data. Let's try to keep this one pretty simple. Let's just say we're going to take the from and we're going to write another select in here. So we're going to say select, and we can write any query we want. Let's just do species, and then we'll do a comma, and we'll do average estimated net worth, which is what we've been working with. And then we'll say from, that's going to be our character underscore info table. And then we're going to say group by species. Now let's just run this query. So this query has the species and the average. And when we run it like this, we're selecting everything from this table. So it should give us the exact same output. But now we can come in here and we can say select everything and we can filter. So this would also be something you can do with the having statement. You can filter on aggregations, but now we're just filtering with a where statement because we're selecting from this table. This is our table now. So since this is our table, we're not aggregating anything in the select with a group by. We can just filter on this. We're going to say where the average, and in fact, let's name this real quick. I'm going to say as average worth. We'll say where the average worth is greater than, let's do 50,000. And we'll run it just like this. And so now we're able to filter down this subquery that we ran. We can filter it down just like this is our table. We can kind of pretend it's over here. It's a table that we're using. And then we can select it. We can group on it. We can use where, order by, all these different things, just like a normal query. So that's one that I think trips a lot of people up. It can be a little bit confusing at first, but it's super, super powerful and very useful. Now let's look at another example. And this is going to be completely different than what we've been looking at before. I'm just going to say select everything, and we'll come right here. We're just looking at our table. So we're selecting from our character info, and we have this species, but in another table, if I pull this up, underscore extra, we have another table as well. Now, what if I wanted to compare? I want to say, okay, this is our original table. This is our extra table. I want to know what species are in this table, but are not in this table. We can do that. So all we'd have to say is select everything from the character info, and then we're going to say where the species, and we're going to do a special command, and that's going to be in. Now, this in command or this in statement is really great because it doesn't just read in one value, it reads in many values. And so in this subquery, we're going to say select species. And I would actually probably do this on the next line over like this, if I were to structure it like this. Then I would say from, and now we're going to say the other table. So we're going to say character info underscore extra. Right now, we're actually doing the opposite of what I just said, but I'm going to change it in a second. But we're selecting everything from character info where the species right here is also in the character info extra, which is this right here. So if there's a match from the character info table and the character info extra, it should be in our output. Let's go ahead and run this. And now you can see we filtered it down. There's human, droid, and human. Those are the only ones that were in both character info and species. But we can also say not in. So now we're looking for the species in our character info that was not in this other table. Let's go ahead and run this. And now these are the ones that are only in character info and they are not in character info extra. So we have Wookiee, Unknown, Zabrak, and Gungan. These are all unique only to character info. This in and not in is really powerful, and you don't even have to use necessarily a subquery here. You could also specify this with values. Oops, let me get rid of this. I could just say where it's human or droid, right? And I could write that out and I could type it, but that would take forever, right? Imagine data with thousands of different species, then that would take forever to hand write that out. And so using this subquery, you're able to save yourself an immense amount of time comparing these two tables. Now, we know we covered a lot in subquery. We used it in the select statement, in the from statement, in the where statement, and hopefully you were able to understand subqueries a lot better. I'm going to challenge you. I want you to keep testing this out. Keep trying it out. Test different things and see what works and what doesn't work. That's how you learn. You just got to get hands-on. You got to test it out. And you can learn subqueries really well just by using this data set right here. With that being said, I hope that you learned subqueries really well and that you enjoyed this lesson. If you did, be sure to like and subscribe. And I will see you in the next video.